The Dominion had ruled for 1,000 years. Their fleets darkened skies, their banners fluttered across conquered worlds, their voice was law, their will unchallenged. In the long annals of galactic history, they were the arbiters of civilization, the final judges of power, the ones who wrote treaties in blood and carved compliance into the bones of the weak. Whole species had risen only to be crushed under their cold authority. 1,000 battles had been fought, and in all that time, not once had the Dominion been forced into retreat. They were the galaxy's apex, or so they believed. Their arrogance was not baseless. It was built on millennia of unbroken dominance. The Vadrath, masters of the Dominion, were a species forged in violence, their flesh as hard as iron, their minds honed to strategy. They had faced every rival worth naming, dissected them, and cast their remains into history's dust. No primitive rebellion had lasted more than a season. No so-called warrior race had survived their systematic wars. Every empire that had dared whisper defiance was erased, their planets reduced to rubble, their histories rewritten as cautionary tales. The galaxy obeyed not because it wished to, but because it feared the alternative. It was into this galaxy of chains that humanity first stepped. To the Vadrath, Earth was little more than a curiosity, a blue-green marble on the edge of mapped space, spinning in a quiet arm of the spiral. They noticed humanity in the same way one notices mold on bread, unpleasant, irrelevant, and destined to be scrubbed away when convenient. The humans were judged as frail creatures of meat, without claws, without fangs, without shells. Their technology was newer than Dominion standard, their weapons smaller, their ships unrefined. In the grand ledger of galactic worth, they were footnotes, a reminder that the universe produced fragile things alongside the mighty. Yet unknown to the Dominion, those fragile things had survived millennia of their own wars, disasters, plagues, and endless cycles of self-destruction. Humanity had clawed itself out of extinction's mouth more times than could be counted. To the Vadrath, this was invisible. They saw the shape of the human body and dismissed the fire inside it. That mistake would be remembered as their gravest error. It began, as wars often do, not with design but with accident. A human exploratory fleet, probing beyond known trade routes, strayed into Dominion territory. They were scientists and pioneers, not soldiers. Their ships bore scanners, not cannons. Their crews spoke of curiosity, not conquest. But in the Dominion's eyes there was no distinction. To enter their domain uninvited was trespass, and trespass was a declaration of defiance. When the human captain hailed the first Dominion patrol, it was with open frequency, tone calm and professional. He spoke words of greeting, a polite acknowledgement of shared existence, an offer of dialogue. But in the labyrinth of Dominion linguistics, his words translated into arrogance, his phrasing a subtle challenge. The Dominion officer who received the signal stiffened in disbelief. To their ears, the human had said, "We do not bow, we recognize no master, we claim equal standing." That single message, distorted by language and filtered through arrogance, echoed through the Dominion like a spark in dry grass. The patrol relayed it to higher command. Higher command relayed it to the council. And by the time the words reached the highest chamber of the Vadrath rulers, they had grown sharper, deadlier. What was once a greeting was recast as defiance. And defiance in the Dominion had only one answer. The Grand Council convened in its Blackstone halls, each elder seated upon thrones carved from the bones of conquered titans. Their voices rumbled like storms, their laughter cruel. A species of flesh and weakness had declared war, they said. How absurd, how pitiful, how insulting. Some demanded immediate eradication, the cleansing fire of orbital bombardment to erase Earth in a single day. Others, more cunning, argued for spectacle, a war drawn out, not for necessity but for demonstration. The galaxy must see what becomes of upstarts. Only one voice, old and scarred, spoke in caution. An elder Vadrath who had lived long enough to witness anomalies. "Do not underestimate the desperate," he growled. We have seen what cornered prey can do when teeth are all it has left. His words were met with mockery. Desperation was no shield against plasma and steel, they replied. And so the council voted and the verdict was unanimous. Humanity would be destroyed. Not tomorrow, not someday, but now. Word of the Dominion's fury spread faster than light, carried through relay networks, whispered in shadowed markets, spoken in trembling tones by species long shackled to their rule. Few pitied humanity. Most assumed Earth would burn before its name was properly recorded. The Dominion did not lose wars, they ended them. This was not news, it was inevitability. On Earth, however, inevitability was a language never spoken without resistance. When the transmissions arrived, when humanity first heard the voice of the Dominion declaring their extinction, there was shock, disbelief, even laughter at the absurdity. The idea that a species they had never known, never wronged, never threatened, could demand their annihilation. It was almost too strange to take seriously. But as images of fleets gathering on the rim of known space arrived, as scouts confirmed armadas mobilizing, the laughter died. Panic might have followed, but humanity had been tempered in chaos. For all their wars with each other, for all their blood spilled across centuries, they had built something rare, a capacity to unite when survival was on the line. Politicians who once argued over borders now sat at the same tables. Generals who once eyed each other with suspicion now pooled strategies. Scientists who had once competed for patents now exchanged blueprints without hesitation. A single truth spread through the species like a rallying cry. They want to end us. That humanity would never allow. Factories roared to life. Old war machines were refitted, new ones designed at breakneck speed. Shipyards that once built vessels for trade were converted into forges of war. Soldiers drilled, pilots trained, engineers worked sleepless nights. Humanity had no illusions about the scale of the threat. They knew they could not match the Dominion ship for ship, weapon for weapon. But wars were not won by numbers alone. Wars were won by resolve, by cunning, by the refusal to break when logic said to yield. In the streets, fear mingled with defiance. Propaganda spread, not lies but reminders. Humanity had survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, apocalypses of its own making. The Dominion was terrifying, yes. But so was history, and humanity had faced history with bare hands and stubborn hearts. A message repeated across every channel: we have always been at war with extinction. This is no different. When the Dominion Armada began its march, it was with a spectacle meant to intimidate. Thousands of ships, gleaming and vast, darkened the stars. Worlds they passed trembled, for those fleets had once meant the end of civilizations. The galaxy watched with grim certainty. It would be quick. It would be brutal. Humanity would vanish like so many before. But on Earth and on the colonies that had sworn loyalty to her, another certainty was forming. They had been underestimated, misunderstood, dismissed. That error would cost the Dominion more than they could imagine. The first volleys had not yet been fired, but already the air was thick with destiny. The narrator of history was clearing its throat, preparing to write a chapter unlike any before. The Vadrath believed they had declared war on fragile meat. What they had actually done was far more dangerous. They had declared war on humanity, and humanity never forgot. The Dominion came with fire, with precision, with the arrogance of inevitability. Their fleets slid into human territory like blades, formations perfect, strategies refined by centuries of unbroken conquest. To them, this was not war. This was execution. The first human colonies to face them were little more than fledgling outposts on distant rocks, fragile domes and clustered habitats orbiting forgotten stars. The Dominion expected them to kneel, to surrender, to crumble as all others had. Instead, the humans resisted. The first clash lasted hours longer than the Dominion had calculated. Their plasma fire reduced habitat shells to molten wreckage. Yet even as the domes collapsed, the humans inside fought with rifles, improvised explosives, and sheer refusal. When the Dominion soldiers breached the colony, They did not find cowering victims. They found civilians who fought tooth and nail, who hurled themselves at armored giants with nothing but knives, hammers, or bare hands. It was pointless resistance, tactically irrelevant, but it unsettled the invaders. They had expected fear. They found defiance. In the void above, human ships met the Dominion in open battle for the first time. Crude, smaller, slower, their technology was visibly behind. Yet the way they fought was unlike anything recorded in Dominion archives. The humans did not follow predictable formations. They did not retreat when logic dictated, nor press forward when caution was advised. They scattered, regrouped, lunged like predators, withdrew like ghosts. A Dominion captain watching the chaos snarled in frustration. His tactical screens flickered with maneuvers that seemed suicidal, irrational. But each irrational strike carved out Dominion losses, turning arrogance into unease. When a human destroyer, crippled and aflame, deliberately rammed itself into a Dominion carrier, detonating its own reactor to annihilate both ships, the Dominion officers stared in silence. Such tactics were unheard of. No sane commander sacrificed so much for so little. But the humans did not measure war in the same terms. They were not fighting for territory, prestige, or resources. They were fighting for existence, and existence demanded that every tool, even death, was a weapon. Reports from the front reached the Dominion Council with increasing dissonance. Yes, human fleets were being destroyed. Yes, colonies were falling, but every victory bled, every battle cost. The Council dismissed these concerns. Losses were the price of cleansing. Yet in the lower ranks of the Dominion military, whispers grew. The humans were reckless. The humans were unpredictable. The humans were terrifying. On the second front, Dominion medics dissected human corpses, eager to catalog weaknesses. What they found was confusion. Human physiology was inconsistent, variable, almost chaotic. Their resilience defied neat understanding. A soldier riddled with wounds continued to crawl forward until his body physically collapsed. Another survived in vacuum for minutes longer than Dominion biology deemed possible. Some carried diseases that passed harmlessly among their kind, but proved lethal to Dominion troops. Quarantine protocols were hastily enacted, but the damage spread. Entire detachments fell sick after minor engagements. To fight the humans was to risk contagion. To touch them was to invite illness. The Dominion had long prided itself on order, on predictability, on control. The humans embodied none of these. They thrived in disorder, adapted to chaos, weaponized the very unpredictability that the Dominion despised. In fleet battles, human commanders made choices no algorithm could model. One admiral scattered her fleet in every direction, then recalled them in perfect synchronization to hammer a single Dominion flagship. Another shut down his own communications, forcing the enemy to chase shadows while his ships attacked from every angle. Losses were immense, but each blow stung the Dominion deeper. In orbit over Helios 3, a human fleet stood against overwhelming numbers. The Dominion outnumbered them 5-1. The humans held for days, bleeding ships into the void, until at last their flagship, crippled beyond repair, broadcast one final message: "We will not surrender." Then they detonated, unleashing a chain of explosions that ripped through half the Dominion formation. The sector was declared pacified by the Dominion after, yet their victory was hollow. They had won ground but lost the myth of invincibility. Psychological warfare followed, though not by design but instinct. Human soldiers laughed in battle, shouted obscenities over open channels, taunted enemies even as they died. Dominion soldiers, bred to silence and obedience, recoiled. The humans mocked death. They treated annihilation as comedy. Prisoners of war told stories of humans painting skulls on helmets, broadcasting ancient war songs, turning every skirmish into theater. The Dominion tried to suppress the effect, but whispers spread. These creatures enjoyed war. By the time the Dominion realized the danger, it was too late. Fear had begun to creep into their ranks. Officers recorded drops in morale, soldiers hesitated in boarding actions, fleets maneuvered with caution where once they had charged without doubt. A single word echoed among Dominion soldiers like a curse: Terrans. It meant unpredictability. It meant madness. It meant the end of certainty, and humanity was only beginning.